Japhy, my boy. On with the show.
Welcome everybody, friends, folks, foes, and fellow pirate mateys, to this week's Friday night feature installment of Pirate Radio Podcast. It's show number 195. Myself, your host, as always, Robin Hood's Chief Communications Officer, Japhy, Ryder. We have got something quite special in some ways in store for you here this go round. We had a cancellation at the last moment, pretty much. So Penny Bradley has stepped up to the plate, and she is going to be able to fill the void, as it were. I think the stars really were in some very auspicious alignment when it comes right down to it here. We'll see how this all plays out and let you, the listener, be the judge. But right from the top here, this week we present to you one of those truly out of this world stories, from Military Laboratories hybrid to touring Montauk time tunnels and waging war in outer space for 50 years. Penny Bradley's story could easily find itself played out within the pages of a best-selling science fiction novel. Kidnapped at the age of 4, she claims to have been taken to Langley, Virginia for both mind fracture and weaponization of her psi abilities. But this is just the start of her mind-blowing adventures. Arriving on Mars through a New York jump gate, she was trained as a Nacht Waffen fighter pilot in the war with both green reptilians and mantids. Later transferred to Dark Fleet, she became a navigator in a space freighter for about 25 years. Eventually, she was age regressed, mind wiped, and time traveled back to her place of origin. Since her return to us here, back on Earth, she studied mathematics, computers, and microbiology. Married with 3 full-grown children, she struggled to readapt to ordinary life. With age regression, sickness starting in 1981, she was mostly able to soldier on until arsenic poisoning nearly killed her some 20 years later. Since this time, she's had to contend with a number of other no-nonsense health issues. Thankfully, however, not all has been doom and gloom. In fact, since around 2013, Penny has miraculously been able to recover many of her past life's most colorful off-planet memories. Believe it or not, make of it what you will. This is the adventurous secret space program story of Nacht Waffen pilot Penny Bradley. We're going to get to her in just a moment. Before we do, though, as always, just to remind listeners, WPRPN is the website you'll want to drop by. Sign up is free. Our email is simply pirate1radio@protonmail.com. If you have any PayPal donations you'd like to make, we're always open to those, of course, and very much appreciative anytime we find something in that order coming our way. Do be sure to check out our Patreon. Help out with the tip jar over there, patreon.com/WPRPN, and minds.com, the digital tokens. That's really what supplies the wind for this flagship's sails. If you have any, rather, if this is all beyond your means, however, we really just appreciate if you're able to share the links, leave comments, upvotes, likes, if you find what we do is of any benefit or value to you. And as always, remember to subscribe and hit the notification buttons wherever you happen to find us in social media. We've only got about 25 more subscriptions to go here with YouTube, and finally we'll be able to monetize something that Penny, I noticed, just managed to achieve the other day. She's up to 1,000, so maybe now's a good time to invite her into the conversation. Congratulations, Penny. That's good on you. And I don't know, like, how long you haven't had your channel around for too long, have you? How did you manage to achieve that so quickly?
I've only been uploading content since Thanksgiving, which is for your out of America listeners. That's in November.
Stand by. Hang on just a second. There we go. Okay, we had a bit of a technical glitch there. We're still streaming, but no, your channel is muted. You're saying you've only had content available since Thanksgiving. You've only been uploading since that time.
I've only had my own original content since Thanksgiving. Before that, what I had was a playlist of all the interviews that people had had me in. And YouTube sent me a official email saying, you have to upload something or we're going to delete you. So I thought about, well, what can I do? So I started having chats with friends. And since I admin a group for people like myself with memories from space, it's just a matter of finding who's already public and willing to talk, to sit down for an hour or two chat. And I don't run them like interviews. I run them like two veterans sitting around bullshitting. So you get things that would not normally come out in something where you're sitting there scared to death you're going to say the wrong thing. But I've gotten a lot of good feedback on it. And I did have a man from Russia. His name's Alexander Cherkasov. And he did a set of 12 podcasts with me starting in December, and I think we went into February, where he wanted me to go in depth about my experiences because he runs a similar Facebook group in Russia for people who have memories of being in space. This is not a purely English-speaking phenomenon. This is worldwide. And I had no idea I was known in Russia until he approached me. So that was pretty spectacular from my point of view. And we had an agreement. They were on his Patreon, and he was charging pay-per-view. And at 6 months, I got copies of the videos and put them on my YouTube, so they're now available for free. The English versions. The Russian versions are still only on his Patreon. Cosmic Conscience is what he calls it. But I don't know what that is in Russian. I don't speak Russian. But I'm pretty proud of the content. And it's funny, the comments that have been made about how he wanted to direct me into what he already believed instead of what I actually experienced. And by the end, he gave up and stopped editing me. So that was funny, amusing.
So he thought, if I'm getting this right, then he was assuming that he knew his story better than you, and it ended up with him as if he was putting words in your mouth, trying to. I think I get what you're driving at there.
That happens a lot because there are so many people out there already talking about their experiences, and then you deal with the propaganda after World War II, because I served with the Germans in space. I didn't serve with Americans. And so I saw a different side of those people than what the propaganda says there should be. And so I'm telling a completely different story, and the cognitive dissonance kicks in. They simply cannot fathom that I'm telling the truth, because they couldn't possibly be just German people. They have to be Nazis. Well, they're just German people in space. Yeah, they still wear the black and the gray and the white uniforms because they're German people, and those are German uniforms. You know, they still use some of the symbols because those have been German symbols for thousands of years, but they're not Nazis. And getting people, even in my own community, to wrap their heads around that is just like, you can't change their mind with a baseball bat. So that's probably a bad place for us to start. What I usually do is a brief overview of what I experienced, but you described that pretty well in your lead-in. And one of the things that people should understand is that all of us, whether we call ourselves super soldiers or secret space program, all of us have been through that initial trauma, torture to create altars, because the agencies involved wanted to be able to use us without us being able to point the finger at them and say they did it.
Okay, I gotta stop you right there, because you're throwing out this term altar, which that to me I saw that pop up continually with the interviews you were doing, your bio material and that sort of thing, and that just went completely over my head. So we're gonna need some explanation as to what these altars consist of. But before we do that, why don't we just back things up a little bit, because we might because it leads right into what we're trying to better explain here, this altar business, that you were kidnapped. The way the story goes is that supposedly you were kidnapped at the age of 4, and as people might expect, we've heard it all before. The bloodlines really is what it comes down to. That whole business, that whole tie-in. So you can share with our audience how that basically works within your family. But Langley, Virginia, where exactly? Langley, Virginia. This is some sort of military facility.
It's Air Force Base,
right?
It's an Air Force base, and at the time it was the headquarters for the CIA. And while I was there, they built their magnificent building that you see the floor panel in a lot of photos.
1959. This is 1959.
1959 was when that building was constructed, and that was the year that I was taken. Yes, folks, I'm 64 years old. So I'm telling a story that is from when I was much younger, and I was not old and disabled in those days. And so people need to get over the idea that I have stayed young and pretty forever, because that doesn't happen to anybody. So that has come up in other interviews too. So I'm part of a bloodline. I'm not in the main part where they have money and power. I'm descended from a daughter who was married off to a knight who's had more than one son, and I'm descended from one of the younger sons who had nothing to inherit.
And this goes directly back to the Knights Templar, does it not?
This goes directly back to the Scythian kings from 3,000 years ago. But yeah, the Knights Templar are part of the story. I have family back in time. Not my current family right now. If you've read The Grapes of Wrath, that's what my grandparents were. I'm not a rich person. I'm not a person with power in the real world. I am a person who, for every appearance, was a total peasant. And I just happened to be good at math. As far as the school system was concerned, they were shocked to find my mental abilities in the public schools. And because my father was part Cherokee, they assumed we were Hispanic, and so they basically dumped me in with all of the farm worker kids. So here was this little blonde girl stuck with the farm worker kids and consistently scoring really high on tests and couldn't sit still and was a total pain in the ass in class. And this is what I was. And I went through my entire school career. I was the pain in the ass that sat there and asked the questions the teacher didn't want asked. So this is what I've been like all along. And so I lived in Tulare County, California, and it is a rural area that's completely based on farm labor. And that's what we were. We were farm labor. My dad worked on a dairy, and he would preach for the Church of Christ on Sundays. So I was raised in the Church of Christ, which our version of it was a cult, and you did not marry outside of it, and there were strange rules about behavior that I've had trouble explaining to other people. And the dairies that he worked on were owned by people from the Azores, and so he spoke Portuguese at work. And he would come home, and the other farm labor people all spoke Spanish, but it was Mexican Spanish, not Spain Spanish. And so we had this mix of language until my dad got hurt and we moved away from the dairies, and suddenly Mom declared we could only speak English at home. So the Spanish and Portuguese kind of drifted away, and in school in those days in California, so we're talking in the 60s, you were required to study a foreign language from the age of 10 upwards. And they usually taught you Spanish, but it was usually someone who didn't speak Spanish trying to teach you Spanish. You understand how futile that was. That's why it was eventually taken out of the law, was because of the futility of English-only speakers trying to teach Spanish to English-only speakers. Meanwhile, you have Spanish-only speakers in the classroom who don't understand anything of what's going on. So
let's take the focus, and thank you for that. That was really I have not heard that from you yet to this point. So quite fascinating, of course, and enlightening as far as your backstory was concerned. It's great that you've essentially managed to make it as far as you have, of course, given the number of challenges you've had to face, obstacles, and so forth.
I made it through junior college with a degree in mathematics. And I'm talking calculus and computers. I'm not talking about business machines. Okay. I got married. I eventually transferred to San Diego State. I had a double major of chemistry and microbiology because I was trying to become a pediatrician eventually. Only I ended up catching a virus in a biology lab I was working in, and was unable to continue my studies because of the virus. And I was 24 at the time. So this was very young. And at that point, I tried to figure out what I could do to help support my kids, because my husband wouldn't hold a regular job very long. And so I was just doing what I had to be able to make money to feed the kids. So I did a lot of home health care and housekeeping, and I've worked in several offices. And so if you look at my basic level of operation, socially, I'm poor working class.
Right. So I think we've got that much established, clear on that end of things. What I'm curious about, though, is two particular items. First of all, we still have yet to clear up and really kind of go into the whole Langley mind fracture business, along with the weaponization of your so-called psi abilities. But issue number two is, how did you manage to be supposedly taken off? Well, I guess you went through a time tunnels, is what you're telling us here. The way things work, how does that square with your life in the real world and having to go through all of these experiences and challenges and so forth as you age? Yeah, go ahead.
Have to understand that these Black Ops programs have time travel. That's number one. They also have technology that they can put you in a tank and set the computer on the outside for an age and weight, and it will conform your physical form to what your DNA says for that age and weight. And so they take you, they keep you for however long, they put you through the age regression machine, they time travel you back to where they took you, and if they do it right, it's less than 15 minutes has elapsed and your family never knows you were gone.
So
it's purely a technology.
Mm-hmm.
Completely a technology. And the CIA has had this technology since the 1950s.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, it seems to resonate. And in my mind, for whatever reason, I'm no expert in the area, of course, just a general layperson, basically. But I'm immediately thinking MK Ultra, and what I do believe you and Cameron, the famous MK Ultra, well, infamous, really, MK Ultra doctor. I'm not sure where he worked out of. Maybe was it Laval University, Montreal?
He was in Canada, yeah.
But the psychic driving bit. Are you familiar with that term, psychic driving?
Yes.
Well, might that not
That's
provide...
part of my research to find out what happened to me. I had memories of the trauma-based mind control. It wasn't satanic ritual abuse because there was no Satanism to it. It was completely in a laboratory setting and was completely science. There was no religion to it at all, but it was exactly the same techniques that the secret societies use on their own children to activate their psi abilities. Now, psionics is a science. It's the same science that people in the population call witchcraft. It's the ability to manipulate energy. Now, it will express itself in different forms depending on your genetic ability to do things. And this is a completely genetic ability. Some people have it, other people don't. If you don't have it, you can't learn it. If you do have it, you have to be taught how to use it. And that was what a lot of my weaponization was they tested me to find out what I was capable of doing. And then they took those things, taught me how to use them in ways that could be applied to military situations. And so I came back to Earth with military skills that I had to learn how to apply to normal life. So I do have a firewall installed where that I can only use them if I believe my life is in danger. And I've had more than one person decide that I have to demonstrate. And pretty much short of coming at me with weapons, I can't. So I have been in situations. I don't know if you know of Misha Johnston. She runs a support group for MILABs, which is what they call us. Military Laboratories, lab rats are MILABs.
How does that? Let me just ask you, because this is a clarification of terms. MILABs. How does that differ from? Because I had initially in putting the show together, we had added that term MILAB, MILAB, to the show description end of things. But then I got thinking, and for whatever reason, I thought that maybe I was confused because doesn't that also stand for military abductions?
It depends on which middle letter you capitalize.
Oh, really?
If you capitalize the L, then it's Military Laboratories. That's my cat in the background.
MI capital L lowercase AB.
That's for laboratories.
Oh.
If you capitalize the A, then it's abductions. And they are done by two different agencies. And sometimes they overlap where they use the same assets. That's us. They do not consider me to be a person. They consider me to be an asset on the level of, say, a Chevy truck. I'm not a person to them. I'm an asset. Somewhere they have a record of me as a property item. Unless they shredded that when the Church Commission hit. Most of the MK Ultra Military Laboratories records were shredded during the Church Commission in 1975 because the then director of the CIA wanted as little evidence as possible to be turned over to the Senate.
Hey, Japhy?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Over on YouTube, we got the question, supposed to ask her about Jerry Avalos.
I saw that, coming to us via
from
Holidium
Labs.
That's right. Yeah.
Jerry Avalos is a member of a military squad that is from Military Laboratories.
We've also got now.
We have had interaction in the past, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, because what he's adding to this here, and I'm trying to be as diplomatic as possible, so brace yourself, Penny. He's
been pretty nasty to me in the past.
Holidium Labs or Jerry Avalos, or both?
Jerry Avalos.
I see. Well, he's saying here, ask her about me. She might hang up. So I'm not sure what that's all about. But anyways, so I have no idea who Jerry Avalos is at all, frankly. But
this community has a lot of people with huge egos that don't want to play well together. And part of that is our programming. We are programmed to not work together so that we cannot unite against the CIA.
Makes sense.
I can believe that. That compartmentalizing everything is what they do. So yeah, that sounds par for the course.
That is why they mind fracture us in the first place. Okay, you've asked about it several times and never let me finish. So the process is they take a small child and torture that child until they reach the point where their mind says, I'm going to die or I'm going to live. And if they say, I'm going to live, they create a bubble around the trauma memory and push it away from themselves. And later on, after the trauma cools a little bit, that bubble can be programmed to be another identity, and it's still part of the same person, but doesn't share memory. So that bubble can be trained to be an assassin, and the main person will never know it's even there. And they were doing this to us on purpose to create those. Now, the year that I was there, in 1959, 80% of the kids that they took died in the first year because the torture was so intense that the kids gave up and died, chose to die rather than live through any more of it. I was one of the ones who survived. Now, by the time they were done with me, I had 2,200 alters. I have worked hard and reintegrated 31 of them.
These bubbles, as you put it, the alters, ALTER, as in to change, I suppose, is another way of looking at it. So the word
as in
so
alternate.
Okay.
The alters are those bubbles that have been trained to be identities of their own. Some of them think they're the only person in the body. Some of them know they're not. I still have episodes where one or more will just suddenly take over, and there's one in particular that drives my husband insane. He has told me in my current self that if that person were not a woman, that he would have punched her, that she's that rude to him. So this is an ongoing problem that all of us in this community have. And that's part of why we have trouble getting along, is because half of them will deny they even have alters, but you watch them on camera and you can watch them switch. If you know what to look for, you can just watch them switch. And every single one of us has a sex kitten alter, because that's part of the game that the CIA plays. While we are in this traumatic, stuck in their care mode, they traffic us to politicians.
Well, and in bringing this whole sex kitten business up, Project Monarch is the first thing that really comes to mind. Mm-hmm. So, what are your thoughts on that? Is there a connection?
Of course, there's a connection. All of these programs are intertwined. When you start, they're using the same bodies of assets for as many as 30 to even 100 programs. And they're not even talking to each other about it.
How many of, let's just say, America's the population of the USA have actually been made to undergo a similar process as to what you had to contend with and face so many years ago? 1%?
My understanding My understanding is that there have been 150,000 Americans turned over to the Germans in space every year since 1959. And that by itself would be over 1 million people by now. And less than 1% of them have any memory of it at all, because the memory blocking techniques are that effective. And yes, our initial reaction to remembering is to flat out panic, to cry for help, and there is none, because some people in the community enjoy bullying the newbies.
Marie, I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, Opekel? Marie Opekel? Opacil. Many whistleblowers on this topic. SSP disclosure is going to hit the fan soon. Better be open-minded and ready for it, is what she is saying. So there we go.
There are, at this point, there are at least 100 of us that are active and giving interviews. We don't agree on every detail, but considering how we were programmed, how we were split into alters and then programmed, it's not surprising that our details are different.
I guess now might be the time to, 50 years in space is what you seem to recall, and apparently you had not remembered too much of any of your past up until about 7 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
I was contacted by an NSA agent, and I think the proper term is called grooming for the audience. And I was groomed by this man over a couple of years. And when we finally met real world, he used my remember code from my mind fracture back at Langley. And I do not know why an NSA agent would have my remember code, and I do not understand why the NSA wanted me to remember. But it worked. And I've been deciphering this lump of memories in German ever since. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. It's this big emotional lump, and it's in a language I don't speak very well. I speak it like a small child. I've had people test me by talking to me, and I have no idea what they're saying. I might understand one word in 4, but that's not speaking a language. So
50 years. 50 years in. Go ahead.
What I've been doing is going by what I see in the memories, going by what uniforms, going by what the buildings look like, going by what the animal life looks like, going by what the countryside looks like, and by the smells and tastes, because I have full spectrum in the memories, and I've been trying to figure out what I was remembering. And the best I can remember, I remember going on an elevator in New York City. There's a bridge in the background as we go in the front door. I've seen pictures. It's one of the bridges over the Hudson Bay that leads from Long Island to the mainland. And this building is not large. It's not the Empire State Building, like people have tried to tell me it was, but it's got enough stories that it has an elevator. You get into the elevator, it has 2 sets of panels. One set is an actual up and down elevator. The other set, they tell you stand in the middle and hold on to each other. And they flip on a switch. The walls go oval and transparent, and you're in a wormhole that's moving towards the back of the elevator. And yeah, you're going to huddle in the middle because the walls disappear. And it takes about 20 minutes to get to Mars, and you come out, and there's a desk like at a hotel in front of you, and it says Willkommen in Mars, in German. And that's how the survivors of my class, and I've had a Department of Defense agent tell me I'm the last survivor of the class of 1964. That's what they called this, a class, like it was school. So I was 9 years old when I made it to Mars. And my entire group were put into a dorm together, like we were siblings. And the Germans put us in Schule. That's their version of school. They run it Prussian style. You have a desktop, you have a chalkboard and chalk, and you write everything and you say it out loud. And if you say it wrong, you get your hand slapped with a ruler. That's the way the Germans in space run school. And in the process of the 10 years they had me in school, I learned to speak German. I learned their mythic history. I learned their literature, their music. I learned exopolitics. I learned exobiology. I learned self-defense against ETs. You remember in one of the Star Trek movies where Data's brother Lore gives a list of ETs and how to kill them in one blow? I was taught that. I was taught by a Draco how to defend myself from the local raptors, because Mars does not have just us there. Mars had 4 races that were sentient and at least formerly spacefaring of its own. They have tall whites who are really Anunnaki. They have Draco. They have raptors who look like Jurassic Park but have longer arms like humans. And their version of mantids who are really more ant-like rather than praying mantis-like. And then there's a human race that has been there since long before we got there, but they are so much like us that the computers think they're us. And that was part of my job, was to bring back human remains for regeneration. And I brought back an awful lot of those people because my ship's computer could not tell the difference. But when you look at them, they look like Native Americans, especially like the Apache tribe in Southwest America and Mexico. And they dress like the ancient Hindus, and their language is very much like Sumerian. So there's already people there. So the Germans got to Mars, found everything was already taken by somebody. They were subletting from the Draco, who wanted every so often a sacrifice of humans for them to eat. And so the Germans decided to make war on the raptors and the mantids to have someplace else to live that they didn't have to give their own people to the Draco. So that was a war that was started in about 1962 and ended in 1990. And when I was 19, I was put into a fighter plane, and I did air surveillance, air cover for ground battles, and I was supposed to find and take out small raptor nests, and I was supposed to bring back deceased human remains, and occasionally, if I could, capture a mantid for interrogation. And when I would capture a mantid, I would usually end up dinner for a spider. And the spiders are not little like on Earth. They're huge, huge. Now, I know people are going to think I'm exaggerating, but the average size is around 9 feet across, just shy of 3 meters for non-Americans. And I've seen them as big as 5 meters across. So we're talking some pretty big critters. Their venom is very, very painful, but you die quickly, so the pain stops. And I was chipped into my ship, and so whenever I no longer had life signs, the ship would call home, and they would send someone to come get me, and I would wake up in the regeneration tank. So yes, I have been dead multiple times and brought back by this technology. I know it works. So.
Sounds like something almost out of the Avatar movie. Very, very similar to what was taking place there. Have you seen Avatar?
I have seen Avatar, and the native Mars humans are very similar to the blue people, Na'vi, I think they're called, in their spiritual views and the way they treat their females with respect. Both the Germans and the Americans on Mars have raped the native Mars human women to the point that if they see any of us in their area, they will pack up their entire village and move elsewhere. They want nothing to do with us.
Let me just jump in here for a moment, if I could, Penny, to remind listeners this is show number 195 of Pi Radio Podcasts. Our guest this week, the Friday night feature slot, is none other than Nacht, Waffen pilot Penny Bradley. And this is really something, you know, we don't cover these sort of stories all that often, but from time to time we most certainly do. And I tell you, there is a great interest out there because we have got upwards of 16 people on YouTube right now and a handful of others over on D Live and Facebook as well, too. So thank you to everybody who is dropping by and joining us. WPRPN.com is the website you will want to take a look at. Drop by. Sign up is free. And the email address where we can receive PayPal donations, or if you have any show ideas in mind, guests that you'd like to see us bring on board, simply pirate1radio@protonmail.com. That's the way to do it. Shout out to JPalm22, Halidium Labs. We've already brought him into the conversation. Of course, he's really quite active in the YouTube chat area. You know, and there's bound to be, as you can imagine, and hopefully can appreciate, Penny, skeptics, people who just think these sort of stories are complete malarkey, of course. At the same time, there are people who resonate a little more with what you're presenting, of course, and maybe they've directly, personally experienced something similar, making them a little more sympathetic and understanding, of course. And then a lot of folks just kind of on the fence, I suppose. But we're here to hear from Penny for the most part here over the course of what we have scheduled and typically slot as it's a 90-minute time frame. So we've got about another 30, 35, maybe even 40 minutes or so left to go here. Hopefully Penny's health and stamina will hold up. Of course, she's been struggling with some issues over the past number of years, but bottom line, of course, is it's a fascinating story, and we really appreciate everyone who has joined us here via either Facebook, DLive, or YouTube. If you do have any Reverend Jim talking about as being heavy shit. Hey, let's bring into the conversation, actually, we haven't heard from him, Pirate Larry, and then we'll hear from you, Reverend Jim, before we turn our sights back to Penny, of course. Larry, are you familiar with these kind of stories, and what are your thoughts?
Yes, Japhy, I am, and these are techniques that I guess are ancient techniques used to psychologically, I guess, fracture. It's mind fracturing, and they split off these personalities, and some of them become Sirhan. They're used for different purposes, and I'm sure she's right. They must have shredded a ton of documents before the church hearings. So it makes sense to me that our illustrious government was up to this nonsense.
Yeah, so it's just something which I think is a lot really for people to take in, people that aren't familiar with this whole area of discourse, really. Unless it's like with anything else, UFOs, ghosts, and so forth. If you haven't experienced it directly, it makes it it's challenging, difficult to get your head wrapped around. So hopefully Penny can appreciate and understand where...
Torture's the same way. Torture's the same way. People don't understand torture.
Well, the MK Ultra, that... go ahead.
What it does to people, that's all.
Okay, yeah, as you say, the mind fracturing, absolutely, and MK Ultra. It's people talk conspiracy theorists. Well, MK Ultra is a conspiracy fact in a big way. The CIA has a lot to be accountable for. They've got a lot to answer for, and they don't, unfortunately, because there's the proper checks and balances just are not in place, and the politicians. Unfortunately, many of them that are out there are compromised. Most of them, in fact, is what it seems, through a whole multitude of various means, unfortunately. But that's what we're looking at. The media is completely useless.
Complicit.
Yeah, complicit, exactly. I mean, it all leads back to the CIA once again, Operation, or I think they call it Project Mockingbird. So look that up, folks, if you're not familiar with it already.
Operation Paperclip was real.
Paperclip, sure.
They brought in the Germans, so...
yeah, that's right.
They brought in all the German scientists, so for Penny to have to learn German, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's strange that she would not remember much, though. I would say, and I think others can probably maybe on the same page, but we'll have her respond to that. She's already, I think, addressed that here a few minutes earlier, but maybe she can revisit that. Go ahead.
Through the,
Yeah. Well, and she says 2013 is when things really started to unravel. She was given the opportunity to re-explore what she had essentially gone through. Reverend Jim. Excuse me, Larry. Okay, Larry. Yeah, if that's all you got to say, that's great. So, absolutely. And damn, we should have. I'm not sure if he was supposed to be in the Howling Wolf or the Scurvy Dog, maybe the Mossy Wench. We didn't really hear too much background scuttlebutt or jibber jabbing as it the way things typically go, but that's fine. Moving right along now. Reverend Jim, just to update from you, I know you're chomping at the bit. They're eager to jump into the fray. We're trying to let, of course, Penny do most of the conversing here, unless I'm occasionally having to intercede, as it were. But yeah, Jim, any just further thoughts or updates? What do you see there? Via your vantage point, I'm totally falling asleep here. We got you up on the crow's nest, of course. So there we go. Unlike with Pirate Larry, Jim.
Yeah, I'm here.
Let's hear your thoughts. Just a quick, brief update.
I am pretty much a novice to this. First time I heard a lot of these stories, like most people, I rejected it as, oh, this is just some type of hogwash. The more research I've done over the years, the more I question how much of this is real. If it's all real, holy mackerel. And she brought up my biggest nightmare, one that I used to have as a child, and that is giant spiders.
Oh, yeah.
And I used to have a recurring nightmare where I was running. I don't know why I wasn't on the sidewalk. I'm running through the neighbors' yards, having to jump over little picket fences and stuff, trying to get away from these spiders. And there is like a wave of spiders coming after me, rolling over each other. And above them is one giant spider trying to get ahead of them to get me. And when she said giant spiders, I just, I shivered. We've got a good-sized audience in my channel and a good-sized audience over on YouTube. Everyone's finding this to be fascinating.
Indeed.
So,
a lot of people have turned out to hear Penny speak and to present her story, her recollections as they transpired. So we're gonna turn the focus back to her in just a moment or two. But Jim, you were going to just a final summarization, or is that about it?
That's about it. I'm gonna have to. I followed her on Facebook, on YouTube, and so I'm gonna go over a bunch of her videos now that I know where her channel's at. So,
all right.
This is a great program, Penny. I'm glad you're here. Thank you.
Very good. So once again, show number 195. Only got 5 more live streams, Friday night feature segments here that we need to launch, and we'll be looking at episode number 200. So how time does fly. This psychic driving business, so I've really got to look into that a little more, frankly. And I just, as listeners probably heard, I was thinking, the thought had just came to my mind, Avatar, because as I recall, the movie, or for that matter, the Matrix series, where people, I believe they're hooked up to various forms of machinery, electronics, maybe find themselves immersed in a tank of some exotic liquid, alien fluid, or what have you. But I guess I need to watch more science fiction movies, I suppose, to really get the gist of things. And it's almost to the point now where really science fiction has become science fact. And God only knows, with these things like Operation Paperclip and the like, who knows what else has really transpired that the world has never even heard about with these black op procedures and agendas and so forth. So much of it seeming to go back to and tie into the world's various, we're all product of some ancient bloodline or another, I'd imagine. But anyways, Penny, I think probably best we bring you back to join us here, just to something we typically do at the top of the hour there is reach out and see how things are going with with Pirate Larry and Reverend Jim, of course. Let's not forget, Reverend Jim is picking up, he's syndicating our stream here, so that's really great as he manages to, through DLive, reach so many people around the world, Europe in particular, and Germany too, let's not forget. So there is that German angle. We have 7 now, it looks like, over in our own DLive channel, so maybe time to open up the treasure chest, I suppose, and see what we can share with our listeners. So let people know if there's anyone out there who has a DLive account. Now might be a good time to drop by and see what you're able to potentially qualify for. So I think that's about it, though, Penny. Thank you so much for your patience. Maybe give you a chance to clear your throat or just to grab a quick drink from... I think I heard, well, maybe you're not drinking anything right now, water or what have you, but where would you like to pick up the conversation? What loose ends do you think we have not really pursued here, other than I was just going to draw your attention to the fact that we are live streaming and using the slideshow actually to help showcase the pictures that you sent our way. For the most part, we went around and dug around a little bit to add more to that end of things via Facebook and whatnot. But yeah, thanks once again for your patience, Penny. Hopefully you can manage to unmute yourself and join us here once again. And let's not forget, you've got your own podcast that is being launched here. You're right in the process of doing that, I believe, courtesy of the Global Enlightenment Radio Network. Daryl and Katie, is that not the case?
Yes, I have a live radio show on Global Enlightenment Network radio. Well, I get it all mixed up. Yes, I'm live on Odin and Katie's network.
Gurn. Hashtag
Gurn.
Global Enlightenment Radio Network. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm on 2 to 4 p.m. Pacific time on Saturdays every week. And my guest this week is a U.S. Army intelligence whistleblower who will be speaking about Project Pegasus, which is a program that involved that elevator shaft that went to Mars. It's the same program that Andy Bajago talks about. And so there are at least 3 of us who have dealt with it. And we'll be talking about that tomorrow. And I have been putting the video section of my radio show into a separate playlist on my own YouTube channel, Penny Bradley, Nacht, Waffen pilot. And you asked about why I had to speak German and why I don't now. It's because the altar that served with the Germans, I remembered her memories, but not her. So Penny doesn't speak German. That altar.
It was removed.
Lieutenant,
it was nullified.
That altar, Lieutenant Valkyrien, does. She doesn't speak English. So even though there's the 2 of us sitting in my head together, we don't speak the same language, so it's very hard to communicate. What kind of, you must have had food and recreation. We had food.
Yeah. What?
I was completely military. They considered me too dangerous to be around civilians because I could explode electronics, and that frightened the Germans. It was a very good thing to have as a military person, because when we were attacked, I could create force fields that would protect the people. So it was a very useful skill to have, but it frightened civilians. I was talking about Misha Johnston's support group, and in that support group, I was getting upset with memories that I remembered, and people in that group started having their circuit breakers flip on them. The only thing in their homes that still worked was the circuit that their computer was on that they were using to be in the group. And they had to replace hundreds of dollars worth of circuit breakers. So I stopped going to the group because I didn't want to do harm. This is something you have to learn how to live with again, so that you don't accidentally hurt people. And to be honest, I never expected that anyone would believe me. I only went public because the CIA started shooting at me. You get shot at enough times, you have enough agents show up on your social media threatening you, you have enough people show up at your door. You eventually get to where you think, well, maybe I'm going to take Bill Cooper's advice and hide in the spotlight. And that's what I've done. And I understand people are not going to believe me, but I'm still speaking the truth as I know it. And all of the people out there who have their own little egos involved, like that one person that you've already mentioned several times, I blocked him on social media because he was threatening me. That's the honest to God truth. So he's continuing to hunt me down and make comments on my interviews because he's still, 4 years later, upset that I didn't do what he wanted me to do. That's it. So the people in this community do have issues. None of us are normal, mentally healthy people. We all have mental health issues, every single one of us. And that's something that the public needs to know. When they start listening to Corey Goode, to me, to Randy Kramer, to Bill Cooper, to Michael Ralph, to Jason Rice, to Tony Rodriguez, to Elena Kapolnik, there are hundreds of us now. When you start listening to us, you need to know there are 6 factions in space. Find out which one we served in before you take everything we say, because every one of us has a bias based on who we served with. Not everyone served with the Germans. Some served with the Americans, some served with the Russians, some have served in mercenary companies. The ones who served in the mercenary companies come back with this gung-ho, we're the best attitude, and they glorify all the blood, all the battle. They think it's wonderful. Those of us who served with the Germans don't. Those who served with the Americans in Solar Warden don't. That's the difference between super soldiers and SSP, is whether or not they are gung-ho military. The super soldiers are gung-ho military, and they will get in your face, and if you are there physically, they will beat the crap out of you and never think twice about it. So some of us are very dangerous. Super soldiers are well noted for they suddenly remember something and their Omega programming breaks loose, and then they will kill their family. And then they sit there and switch back to their normal altar, realize what the hell they've done, and kill themselves. Which was the whole point of the Omega programming, was if you remember, you kill yourself. This is what the CIA did to us. And all I ask is for Americans to contact Congress and ask Congress to investigate the CIA for human trafficking.
one of the
That's all I'm asking of anybody.
Yeah.
Contact Congress for a new church commission, only this time about the CIA's human trafficking.
Yeah, that's one of the questions I was going to ask you, actually, was whether or not you were working on any legal action to basically do exactly what you're doing here, draw the public's attention to your story. And you
have to remember names and faces to be able to testify.
Right.
And they made sure we can't do that.
Well, Langley, Virginia, that seems to be, you've mentioned that location. And then the business, this jump gate, that whole area is something all something all unto itself, I suppose would be the right way of putting things. But yeah, that's quite. Now, so are you working then? You are working with others, presumably, with respect to the human, because it does fall under the umbrella of human trafficking. Clearly, I mean, where you're being kidnapped at the age of 4 and put...
Yeah, it's human trafficking.
Yeah.
It's human trafficking, and I was used as a sex slave while I was still a very small child. That was part of the process from the age of 4 to 9. And it is part of the process for every one of us, including that person that you've mentioned already so many times. That happened to that macho person too.
That the character who you blocked on Facebook, I guess it sounds like you don't really want to talk about, although I, like I said, had never heard of him, and it looks like Military Labs, very snarky, unfortunately, is the way that That's the way our entire interaction went during the time frame that I was speaking to him, and he finally threatened my safety, and I blocked him. Yeah.
And over on YouTube, one of the mods removed him because he was just not being social.
So. I don't know if that was the right move to make necessarily, but yeah, he's not in a very good mood tonight.
You can't be at least social about things. You know, we can agree to disagree. But if you're just going to be an ass about it, leave.
Yeah.
We had met in a group on Facebook, and his girlfriend, because they weren't married, he was still married to someone else. His girlfriend befriended me when I was first remembering, and within 6 months, the two of them had turned on me, and the attitude that he gave in the YouTube is the attitude that they both developed, and the only solution was to break contact, because I have no intention of being hostile with other victims of these agencies.
This is Jerry that you're referring to, correct?
Yes, Jerry.
Okay, yeah, because, right.
I have no reason to be hostile with other victims.
No, that would be the last thing you would hope, that you'd think you would be able to work together, form a support group, of course, and that would make the most sense. But as you said, according to what you've laid out, is that based on the programming that each of you were given, that the CIA does not want you to do that in the least, strength in numbers sort of approach. So they would prefer everybody fight with each other, of course. A lot of infighting is always great. They love that sort of thing.
I do have a support group on Facebook. It's secret, and Secret Solar System Civilization, but you can't find it in a search. And we have approximately 300 members, and it's a very tight-knit group that has been together for 4 years, and we get along well together, and we're there for each other and have each other's backs. which is the way it should be when you're trying to recover from something like this. And we're very careful that when people start showing the violence, they're asked to control it. And if they can't, then they're shown the door.
Jigs is commenting here via YouTube that people are obsessive online, just as bad as warfare. We call them spurgs, ma'am. Block the roaches as they come. So there we go. On the fence, go ahead.
That's pretty much the attitude that my team has been taking in our group. I was an admin in another group and had someone decide to be jealous because I was more popular in interviews than he was. And I ended up having to leave his group just to keep the peace. And yeah, I do leave rather than make a big fight because we're already all victims. There's no reason to make it a big fight.
Indeed. And you know, you're so right about all of us being mentally diseased, as it were. Just look at the word, folks, diseased. That's why meditation is so important, as I often like to say. Yes, Reverend Jim.
This topic also goes in hand with the targeted individuals.
Sure does.
If you remember the show we had a little while ago.
That's right.
A few months back.
Yes, a lot of our people are targeted individuals, especially once they go public. And I've been shot with energy weapons 10 times. I've had agents harass me online. I had one yesterday try to get me to friend someone who had tried to kill me before. And I told him, what?
When you're shot with an energy weapon, does it feel like your skin's burning, even if you're in a building? Does it?
Yes. When I got hit, it felt like I was hit with a log, except there were no marks, and it burnt inside for 6 weeks. It's painful as hell.
Okay, because I think I know somebody that's what they described, and there's
I had that happen 10 years. I mean, 10 times in 4 years I've had that, and it's painful. It's annoying, and it's something I never want to have happen again. But if I stop talking, they win. So,
absolutely, no surrender.
From my point of view, this is a survival issue for those of us who have been through this, and the rest of the world will never understand it because they've never experienced it. But I'm not reaching to them. I'm reaching to the person who's sitting there knowing that they went through the same thing and they can't talk because their spouse thinks they're crazy. Their parents have threatened to put them in a mental institution. Their children say they're crazy. I'm telling you, you're not crazy. This is real.
It reminds me of the old saying, I'm paraphrasing now, but how that for those who believe, no proof is necessary, while those who doubt, no proof will suffice. So,
well, let them get hit with an energy weapon just once, and they'll change their mind.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm kind of on edge, a little concerned, to say the least, about this whole 5G Wi-Fi business, and that something that a lot more people should think about. Unfortunately, the reaction based on what we've seen throughout the course of this whole COVID 1984, or hashtag, if you will, Fauci virus, what would you want to call it? Just apocalypse, corona apocalypse, that
it's a new world order attempt.
Well, sure. Yeah, indeed it is, and takeover. The
that's
people.
That's what it is. It's a power grab.
Oh, sure. And the people people, the masses out there, just the number, there are people who are skeptical, who doubt, who say, wait a minute, this is a bunch of nonsense. But very disappointed with the sheeple, as it were, and the people just endlessly obsessed with masks, when even myself, the first couple weeks, up to a month or so, maybe a little more, I was quite concerned, thinking that, gee, what do we got here? The bubonic plague, 2.0, or what's the deal exactly? But based on what we've seen up to this point, I'm just not buying it. Just not buying it. Go ahead.
They did paint it that way.
Who the new NWO? Fauci and Gates and Company Incorporated.
Yeah, the WHO and the others in that vaccination happy crowd.
Yeah.
They painted
it. The CDC,
all the vested interests.
World Health Organization.
Sure.
All the people with their hands in the pockets and will make money off of a vaccine, and
Indeed.
they really don't care what it does to the rest of us.
Oh, that's right.
And all of them are doing a major power grab, and it's up to us, the population, to put a stop to it, and I'm not seeing that happen. I'm seeing people complaining about the masks, and I'm seeing people pushing the mask, and I'm not seeing very many saying, wait a minute, this is a power grab beyond what the Patriot Act was.
The Unpatriot Act is how I prefer to look at things. I understand what you're saying, though. Sure.
It's the proper title of it.
Under
the law.
We have a new title.
It was a massive unconstitutional power grab.
Yeah.
And the people have just rolled over and let it happen, just like they're rolling over and letting this happen.
Indeed. We've only got a few minutes left here, so we've got Me and My Zoo over on D Live asking what is a link to get in touch with her. We've got that information available to you, Me and My Zoo, over on YouTube. Just click on the show description link and you'll be able to find all the URLs and everything else down below, of course, as always. I know you're over on D Live, so maybe we'll have to copy and paste that the main show link that we have here for you. But yeah, Penny, I mean, geez, have you considered writing a book?
I have one in progress. I started writing and had a couple of questions come up that I needed the answers for myself, so I took time out to research them. So I have about 30 pages of what I consider a 200-page book written, and it's in 8th grade English, but with scholarly footnotes. So it should be a split personality thing going on here, which makes sense since I have split personality. So
sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah,
well, you don't sound too schizophrenic, of course, but
I'm okay. Dissociative identity disorder is not the same thing as classical schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when it's induced, done to the person on purpose. And those of us who have survived this, it was done to us on purpose.
That's dissociative identity disorder?
Identity disorder.
How about that?
That's what it's called in the psychiatric handbook.
Have you been treated or admitted at any point over the course of your life, or is that something you'd rather not divulge?
My doctor thought I had anxiety issues and had me on something to calm me for a long time. It made it really easy to work at Walmart. I've been off it since 2012. So I am what I am. And when I shift alters, it's apparently pretty obvious to everybody around me. I have, from my perspective, I have missing time. And I have used Native American shamanic soul fragment retrieval to reintegrate the 31 altars that I've reintegrated.
You're part Cherokee.
And
is that not the case?
I am part Cherokee, and my partner is Iroquois. And he is a shaman, and we have been working together because in the course of a deep trance, it's real easy for you to be fooled about something that's coming up to become part of you. But when you have a shaman with you in the trance, that shaman can identify what's you and what isn't. And so he comes with me when I do this. And I've successfully reintegrated 31 of them out of 2,200. So I still have a very long way to go.
We've got me
But
and...
yeah, I do have this practice, and the doctor that I have now is not even attempting to put me on meds because he says, you're treating the situation and it's working, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
There you go. Pretty much the way we look at our live streaming operation here after having worked so hard to get things to the point where we are now, almost the 1,000 level subscriber mark. Only 25 more
Congrats.
to go. Pardon me?
Congrats.
Oh, I wouldn't offer congratulations yet. I'm just waiting for us to reach that threshold and then have YouTube switch around the goalposts again. You know, just kind of, we've maybe 5,000. Maybe we can start to make those super chats available at 5,000. Oh, it's been a lot of work.
I cannot monetize mine because I have this wonderful theme song that was written for me by Pyramids on Mars.
Kevin Estrella.
Yes.
We've had him on the show.
Estrella,
Sure, it was great.
Kevin Estrella wrote the song Nacht, Waffen for me, and it's on his last album, Edge of the Black. And he has said in multiple interviews that he wrote it for me, and I have his written permission to use it as my theme song, and I have been and will continue to. But YouTube won't monetize with it on. So
wait a minute. If you use that theme song, they're going to shut you down?
They won't let me monetize because they say that they can't get advertising on a video that has a heavy metal intro.
Oh God.
So
that sounds like discrimination to me. I don't know what you think.
I'm not worried about it. I'm not in this for money. I'm in this to stop the kidnapping.
Well, there's no doubt that's been taking place for quite some time now. And of course, it's the last thing that the powers that be, those out there, organized crime, and people who have been actively engaged in this sort of systemic activity, they would not want it to come to the surface, have it revealed. And it's one of the reasons why during the course of this Great Awakening, if you want to look at things in that context, the apocalypse, as a lot of people call it, which I'm okay with, because all that really means is just it's just more light. It's a revelation, greater understanding being brought to the world. And we have technology to thank for that, I do believe, along with archaeology. Things like the internet, but also archaeology, ground-penetrating radar, which is uncovering so much around the world that has been hidden and occulted.
We have been lied to about who we are and what our history is for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
The DNA manipulation, how about that, you know? So
almost everything we have been told is a lie.
I can believe that, sure. So, go ahead.
The DNA manipulation is really obvious. My microbiology training. If you look at the human DNA from a nucleus and you spread it out, and they have them designated in order. If you look at human chromosome number 2, it is obviously 2 other chromosomes put together, and not in a real professional manner. And the intention of that was to change us from a 48 chromosome being like other hominids on this planet to a 46 chromosome being, so that we would be compatible with what? All of our history says Anunnaki.
Well, this sounds like something that if you're going to join us, we can get into during the course of the after show. Before we turn our sights to doing that, though, me and my zoo just wants to thank us very much, and I think thank you as well too, Penny, saying that she feels her power. That's you, of course. Feels your power, and she doesn't. I'm assuming this is a she. It might, who knows? But that they don't feel alone anymore. So it sounds like it could be someone who you might be getting in contact, in touch with you here before too long. They did want your contact information and the like. So good luck with that. And I'm glad that we could help facilitate this in making this connection. It's been a great ride, most definitely. And it would be wonderful to have you back at some point. I'm so glad that you reached out to us, of course, courtesy of Daryl,
yes,
one of the heads of the Global Enlightenment Radio Network, #GERN. And because we had this recent, as I said at the start of the show, cancellation, that Penny was there. She sent us her bio information and so on and so forth, and just everything seemed in place, ready to make this show happen. And we've done it, essentially, along with not only her help, but also you out there in the listening audience. So that really means a lot to us. Just any closing words, comments, thoughts, Penny? I know there's so much to cover here, of course. How would you like to take this one home?
Be good to each other. You don't know what someone has actually experienced, and they may not either.
That's a great point. So there we go. Let's not forget as well, too, that once again, if you are wanting to get in touch with Penny, you can do so via the contact information we have available down in the YouTube show description area. Our main website, once again, WPRPN.com, and email, of course, too. Let's not forget, if you have any PayPal donations you'd like to help cover our operating expenses with, it really helps to go a long way. We are working to the point where we're able to do that, and not just be endlessly here ourselves running out of pocket. That's how we've been doing it here the past number of years. #WWRHD. What would Robin Hood do? Along with the fact that, yeah, we've been giving back half of everything that we do bring in back to you, the public, people out there at the grassroots. Small token gestures, really, but on every occasion, challenging others to either meet or beat the gestures, the token, whatever degree or level it is, maybe $50 or $100 in support of either the likes of UFO political prisoner John Ford, James Hydrick, Richard Whipple, of course, over there in Poland. We can't. It's hard to. there's a lot of people that we're working on making contact with, and that we're happy to support and to promote. That's what it's all about. WPRPN.com, the People's Pirate Network. Now we're gonna, I guess, reach out and connect with. Well, I suppose Reverend Jim could be the first. Jim, you're making your way on down from the Crow's Nest. I think you would agree it's been a great show, great conversation here, with so much more left to discuss, and that's one of the reasons that Penny's going to be having her own podcast in place here quite shortly via the Global Enlightenment Radio Network. Just any thoughts, Jim, before we duck on out of here and then take the conversation to the premium end of things with the after show?
I think that's the sign of a good show, is it brings up more solid questions than it answers. Answers a few and brings up more, and this certainly did. I'll be, like I said, I'm going over to her YouTube channel and going over some of the videos and things she has already in place. So, great show. Thank you again, Penny, and everyone have a great weekend. Stay safe. No fear, no mask. I'm out.
Indeed. No fear, no mask. That's right. It's utterly ridiculous. The small city where we are based out of here in South Korea, around...
Hashtag Fauci virus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've been doing that a lot as of late, just waiting to see when we're going to get cut off. By the way, I should check the OBS. Well, looks like we're still streaming. Unlike last time where when we brought that up, immediately we saw the show end. The OBS wanted to crash for some reason, so that was quite something. But anyways, it looked like we've rectified things and worked that out of the system. I guess we can now, before we finally call it a night here, we'll talk to Pirate Larry. Now, he was Dead Man's Bluff. I don't think that's the place that's not where he was.
No, Japhy, I'm down at the Mossy Wench.
The Mossy.
I'm having a couple of grogs.
There we go. Yeah, we can hear a bit of chatter and clatter in the background there. So, yeah, how are things looking?
Table for you lads.
The Mossy Wench, I guess. So that's where we'll be headed. How about that? Well, looking forward to it. Thoughts on the show?
It was a great show, Japhy, and these are very serious issues. Trafficking is a very important plague of our time, and I'm so glad that Penny was here to give us some insight into the fact that our own government is involved in this horrible, horrible crime.
Indeed, yeah. So just looking around here with my eyes over on Facebook, just one last glance here to see if there's any comments that popped up. We did get a great number of people, of course, turning out. Too many people to mention, unfortunately. If you do leave a comment, that always helps. Jason LeBlanc, Zane Ivy. A great question coming to us via Zane. What's the overlap between nation states and secret space programs or breakaway civilizations? Well, I guess we'll cover that in the after show, Zane. So if you're on Skype, that's the way that you can get in touch with us. Our main contact email that you have to look for is simply pirateoneradio@gmail.com. pirateoneradio@gmail.com. And you can connect with us on Skype. We'll bring you into the Rogues Gallery after show, the premium content, and to this week's live streaming production, although it won't be live streaming in itself. It'll simply be archived and offline, available to our Patreon supporters as well as participants too. So Margaret Stockdale, hello, who's on? Check out the show description that we have available there. Margaret, that's coming to us courtesy of Facebook. So, well, thank you once again to everybody who did take part in this week's live stream. It's been a great ride. We'll see what we can do to get Penny back. Hopefully at some future point. Glad that she did reach out to us, of course. And we'll be back this Tuesday night with the news as usual. Next Friday, I'm not sure if we've got that clearly worked out yet to this point, although we might, as a matter of fact. No, that's still up in the air. We're still juggling the schedule around. We have a few different options. But we'll let you know as soon as we can here, of course. So thank you once again to everybody who did drop into this week's live stream. Comments were great. Even the snarkiness was a bit of fun too in seeing that come at us, come our way, and have a chance to see some people's true colors. You know, Halidium Labs had someone who I've been in contact with and known via Facebook in particular for some time, but it's unfortunate that as so often is the case, you see people for who they really are in some ways. It's just the shadow coming out more than anything, that side of their personality. So in the meantime, though, as we often like to say here, as we wrap things up until we meet again out on the high digital seas, on behalf of Captain Long John Sinclair and all the rest of the crew aboard the Robin Hood, including the likes of Reverend Jim and Pirate Larry, I'm your host as always, the show's Chief Communications Officer, Japhy Ryder. Watch out for that MK Ultra psychic driving stuff, kids. Stay awake. Tally-ho.
Aye now, there we be. Having carefully looked over each of our navigation panel instruments,
checking every level, switch, dial, cable, knob, and pulley, by all accounts and indications, we indeed see it's time, once again, to drop anchor inside Mystic Bay.
draw an end to yet another week of World Pirate Radio Live.
Remember,
if you're looking for a little more animated online action,
keep in mind we've likely got yet another great free-flowing Rogues Gallery after show
coming up for the next hour in one of our more premium, exclusive, and remote digital underground online pirate hideaways. Also, if you yourself have a new,
novel, intriguing, or otherwise underreported idea, unique individual, or pressing item in mind, be sure to either drop us a line directly over on WPRPN.com or fire us a quick email
via Pirate One Radio at protonmail.com.
We're always open to exploring fresh creative suggestions, intriguing guest ideas, cutting-edge discussion topics, and captivating themes.
Remember, WPRPN.com member sites, subdomain links are also always available.
Great for artists, musicians, podcasters, bloggers, social media personalities,
or pretty much just any old landlubber
looking to boost their online visibility, presence, and reach.
Basic personal profile accounts can be launched for just $60 per year.
Staking your claim now helps not only strengthen you and the network, we're also looking out for the little guy. That's right, folks. As much as half of all WPRPN's profits are redirected right back into the hands of the people who really need it most. Community charity. After all, We are the Robin Hood.
You can further embark on your own personal pirate journey by either liking, sharing,
Commenting on, subscribing to, or just following us via virtually any mainstream social media platform, including Twitter, Facebook,
Gab,
or Minds.com. So don't forget to become engaged. Until we meet again out on the high digital seas, I'm your host as always, the ship's Chief Communications Officer, Japhy Ryder. Tally-ho.
The theory that the long-term habitability of Earth for animal life may be rare in the galaxy.
Big name